Oh boy. Hello everyone, how you doing? This is Efwa Ellens Ede with Social Impact Consulting. We are here on Devsectorseries. Guess what, y'all? This is a special day today because today is my birthday. Yay! Today's my birthday. So I'm extremely excited about today. Celebrating another year. I am extremely grateful for that. So that is really something that I am excited about and grateful for. So so let me know where you're hailing from. Just give me a shout out where you're hailing from, whether it's from Nigeria, from any part of Africa, from any part of the world. Give us a shout out. Well, I am hailing from Nigeria. I am here in the FCT Abuja. So very excited about that. So we are having a special guest today. Adaku Uche-Ekpo. She is not just a social entrepreneur and a development consultant. She's also a very good friend of mine, and I see her passion for the work, for national and international development, working with impact organizations such as nonprofits and social enterprises with national and international clients. So do me a favor, let me know where you're hailing from so that I can give you a shout out. It's shout out time. Come on, y'all. So let me know where you're hailing from. Now, before I even start talking about where you're hailing from, for those of you who are new here, this is the development sector series known as Devsectorseries, where we talk to social entrepreneurs, development technocrats from different parts of the different thematic areas, whether it be youth development, agriculture, democracy and governance, the environment, just to have a discussion about to improve Africa, what they are doing right now and what the future holds. So that's pretty much what Devsectorseries is about, because upon coming to Nigeria and working as a consultant, I saw that the brightest minds in the world that I've seen are in Nigeria and Africa. I see Mr. Ajayi from the UK. Anybody else? Let's hear it. Let's hear it. Thank you so much, Mr. Ajayi, for coming. Thank you. So I see Dr. Bridget Egboha. Thank you. You are live from Lagos. All right. So anybody else that's coming on, just let us know where you're hailing from and we'll be happy to give you a shout out. So like I was saying, we're having conversations with development technocrats. Let's talk about what they're doing to change the world from where they are, and what are suggestions to make the world a better place, especially starting from sub-Saharan Africa. And what Ada is going to be talking to us about, one thing that I like about this conversation is that she has written tens and tens of millions of dollars worth of grants for national and international clients. So she's the one, she will be able to give us a sense of what the philanthropic trends are, like what's going on in the space. Okay, I see Yemina from Lagos. All right, welcome. Thank you so much. So she'll just be giving us insights that we need, because this gives impact organizations and social entrepreneurs an idea of where their organization sits in the grand scheme of things with regarding philanthropy, and what organizations even need to do to become a donor darling. So I'm just excited about this conversation. So I'm going to be presenting her right now. I will share her video bio, and then we'll begin a wonderful conversation. So here goes. Uche-Ekpo has 17 years of experience working with nonprofit organizations in the area of agriculture, youth development, rural livelihoods, and promoting the rule of law. She currently consults with nonprofits and development organizations. Prior to this, she worked with 4-H, a US-based network of youth organizations, where she managed fundraising from philanthropic foundations and also provided programming support on agricultural value chain programs for out-of-school youth in sub-Saharan Africa.
Adaku managed business development for the American Bar Association Rule of Law Initiative and managed multilateral partnerships and global programming for Junior Achievement, a global youth organization focused on entrepreneurship, financial literacy, and work readiness. She has also served as a board member and a member of senior leadership team with a few nonprofit organizations in the US and Nigeria. Adaku has a Bachelor of Arts in Business and Political Science from Warren Wilson College, North Carolina, a Juris Doctorate from The Ohio State University, and a Master of Public Administration from the University of Pennsylvania. Allow me to introduce to some and present to others Adaku Uche-Ekpo, a social entrepreneur and development consultant.
All right. Hello, Ada. How are you? Good to
I'm
see
good.
you.
Good to see you too.
Great.
Happy birthday, for a happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm just happy that I'm sharing this time with you and the audience to just kind of have a conversation about a hot topic about
Mm-hmm.
philanthropy and what social entrepreneurs and change makers want to hear. How can they support their work? What the trends are? And I feel like your extensive experience would be able to shed some insight on that, right?
I hope so. I hope so. I hope you have bigger plans for your birthday beyond this.
Yes, yes, yes. We're just probably just gonna do something with the kids and then just kind of take it easy today. So but I'm really excited. I don't know. This year, I'm very excited about this year. I feel like the energy of opportunity, in the midst, I feel like there's a diamond in the rough, in spite
That's
of
good.
what is
That's
happening
good.
around us. So
That's good.
hopefully, so that's what's making me optimistic about this year. But yeah, so thanks so much for doing this.
No
Um,
problem.
so, based on your extensive experience, you've worked with various organizations that have done work in Africa. You have, you don't only write grants. You conduct extensive research to provide those commonalities between the donor and the grantee. So, based on your experience, what do donors generally give to in Africa? What do they look into to give?
So let me start off by saying I'll answer it in two ways. One, whatever anybody wants to do in the nonprofit sector, they should do based on their passion, based on the need, as opposed to based on what donors are focused on.
Of course,
So
definitely.
I want to separate those two. Right now, Africa has a youth bulge.
Mm,
We're young continents. The vast majority of our population are people under the age of 40, even though I would say actually under the age of 35. And
mm,
so this is a concern for everybody, not just donors. This is a huge, because our youth population, we are not, as a continent, generally speaking, we've not provided for them in terms of employment or in terms of life skills opportunities. And so donors are concerned about this, and there's a significant focus on funding programs around youth, around skills for youth, anything to sort of engage people, young people, so that the negative effects of unemployed young people, unskilled or low skilled young people does not sort of lead to more conflict on the continent. So that's a huge focus. Another focus is digitization, tech. Donors are looking at how tech can help, or technology can help leapfrog the continent's development. So even in areas like agriculture, you see donors that want to fund things in agriculture, but they prefer to fund things that have a significant tech focus,
I see.
um, because of the probability that it can help with scale and impact.
I see.
Um, I would say those are the two things that sort of, in terms of areas, donors are still funding education, donors are still funding health, donors are still funding relief, especially because of COVID. You know, COVID set the
Yes,
whole world back last year. And so there's an increase. There was a lot of funding was diverted towards relief, providing immediate relief to people. So donors are still funding all of those things on the continent. However, it's just things are a little bit more, the expectations are a little bit more um, structured or sophisticated. So it's not just we're going to fund building a school in this
I
rural community.
see.
You know, in terms of education, it's more like, how do we use technology to improve education? How do we use technology to reach people that are in hard to reach communities? How are we thinking about, we spent all those years saying we need to educate people. And now the whole world is saying that there's a difference between educating people and making getting people to school versus making sure they received quality education, right? Going to school does not mean you're receiving quality education. So
Very
now
true.
donors are asking the question. What I'm seeing is more youth technology slash digitization. And in any, whether it's agriculture, education, health, there's this still component of how are you doing things differently based on evidence, based on technology. So some of those areas are still they're still a factor, but these are the key pillars.
I see. I see. So what you're saying is that because Africa has this youth bulge, donors are paying attention to that. You're also saying
Yes,
that that they do support education and some other key thematic areas, but there needs to be a degree of innovation, and
yes,
there also needs to be a degree of technology so that
yes,
Africa can catch up with the world.
yes.
So I want this pretty much segues to the next question. So like in your career with working with like on your profile it says you were working on multilateral and bilateral partnerships with Junior Achievement Worldwide, and then transitioning into going into grant writing with other national and international clients. So like based on that span, what trends of donor engagement have you observed?
Hmm. I would say that the biggest thing is structure,
Hmm.
followed by
I see.
evidence-based. So let me unpack structure.
Okay.
Um, I would say many years ago, it could be that you had a passion, you wanted to solve a problem in your community, and you just put the
Hmm.
word out, and everybody got carried away with your passion and funded you. Today, donors are saying we we we've been funding um, things around education or things around getting young children off the streets. And we're not really seeing the impacts.
I see.
So the commission studies, they've done research. Oh, wait, sorry, I got distracted. I got mixed up. I was actually talking about structure. So let
Hmm.
me finish. Let me go back to that. Sorry about that.
Okay.
When it comes
Okay.
to structure, donors are looking at whether your organization has a functional board,
I
a board,
see.
that understands their roles and responsibilities.
Hmm. Hmm.
Many people set up organizations and ask their respected, people that they respect to be on the board without actually thinking through what are the things that they need for their board, and does this person, can the people that you've gathered together, can they help you meet those needs? Do they
Hmm.
understand the concept of oversight? Do you have
Hmm.
somebody on your board that will make sure that you people are really doing well with managing your finances well, and making sure your finances finances being audited? Do you have somebody on your board that is going to remind you about the importance of evaluating the impact of your program? So, and then does your board reflect your community? For example, if you're doing things around youth development, is there a young person on your board? If you're doing things around gender, does your board have a gender balance? Um, do you have people that represent all aspects and spheres of society? Are there beneficiaries alongside, or is there somebody that at least can speak for the beneficiaries or lives in the beneficiary communities? So donors are looking at your board. Donors are looking at whether you actually have a reasonable budget for your organization, whether you're sticking to your budget, whether you how whether you are observing conflicts, whether you're preventing conflicts of interest. I've written a lot of proposals where the donors ask to see your bylaws, they ask to see your bank statements. You know, if you have an executive director that is, you know, using the organization's bank account as to cover the donors do not want to participate in funding that organization. So donors are looking to see, are you structured? Are you taking this seriously, or are you doing this as a hobby? Are you doing this as, you know, just because it feels trendy? Are you taking this seriously, and are you putting in proper structure, no matter at what level you're starting? The second thing that donors are looking for is evidence-based programming. So, for example, you're in your community, you notice that a lot of young people are children on the streets, and you say, okay, I want to solve this problem. And you get up and you gather them together and you set up an orphanage. And then you go look for funding. And you'll be surprised, or donors will say to you, what does the research say about whether orphanages work, whether setting up an orphanage is the proper solution to this? So before, I always tell people, before you go jump up, your passion and your drive and your desire to solve the problem is legitimate and it's sincere. However, do your research and see if there is evidence that this approach does not work, and it could work if you enhance it with these tools or these other activities. Don't just do something because you assume that that's the best solution. Actually research and find out, has this been done before? Did it work? Donors are
Exactly.
very conscious of making sure the solution does not cause more harm. So I would say that over the years, I have seen two major changes. One, making sure that the organization is structured and can manage resources. And two, making sure that the program is backed by evidence. That there was some thought into whether this is an adequate solution and whether this matches the needs in the community.
You know, when you were just talking, I felt like a kid in the candy store because, you know, I've been teaching this to organizations for the past couple of years. And, you know, just to talk to a colleague who specializes in donor engagement saying the same thing, that institutional strengthening is important for nonprofits so that donors can see that it's viable. There was one thing that a donor was saying in an interview. I think it was an Aspire Coronation Trust, or Sai was having a conversation with the host, and she said donors look at organizations as business partners. It's an impact business. We're making an impact investment. So we have to, so like with any other investment, we're doing due diligence. We want to make sure that you're ready. We want to make sure that there's corporate governance. We want to make sure that all these things are in place. So it's just amazing that you're saying the same thing, and then even adding onto it with program delivery, you know, the impact of programming. That's why even there are lots of organizations that are hiring consultants to do a baseline, because you need to know whether the job is needed. You need to be able to show evidence-based research on why are you applying for funding for an orphanage in this area? Are there a high degree of homelessness among children? Like, what are some of these issues? So it's just you mentioning that I was just like a kid in a candy store, like, oh my God, this is exactly what I have been talking about. And this is a way that an organization can have a successful institution, because they will have the donor partnerships that they need, because they
Yes.
see you, as less risk. So that is really amazing that you mentioned that. So this even segues to the next question. The word donor fatigue, that's a term that's being used lately in the space. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that, you know in terms of donor fatigue.
Donor fatigue is literally donors being exhausted with funding the same thing over and over again, and they're not seeing results, they're not seeing impact. And look, the truth is, I don't believe, honestly, that I think it's almost like a reset that everybody has to have. You are not going to get development. You're not going to have economic development through um, through donors, through donations, through large scale economic aid. Um, Donors are supposed to sort of strengthen capacity of the people to do whatever it is that needs to be done for progress to happen. So a significant element of donor fatigue is the maybe unrealistic expectations that were set. You give, maybe a government gives a number of CSOs, global NGOs, $100 million to improve the education sector, and not much changes, because I don't believe that any country is going to develop based on pilot projects or NGO projects, no matter how passionate and how well thought out the projects are. There has to be significant level of coordination between government, private sector, and the local and NGOs. So this actually, in my opinion, donor fatigue is also what is driving the push for evidence-based programming.
I see.
What is it that you want to do, and what's the evidence you have that is going to work, and what is the capacity of this program to what's your ability to scale it and to have significant impact. But there's, like, donors are actually just, a lot of donors are just tired of funding the same thing in the same location. How many times are they going to fund education programs, making sure that children in rural areas are being educated, or that a country has the ability to conduct their monitoring and evaluation. So it's being driven also by NGOs' abilities to be realistic about their programming, to think bigger and broader about their programming, so that you can show the donor, and also to be innovative about your programming, to show the donor that this is what was done before. Because some of the donor fatigue is also based on programs that were just not well thought out. They meant well, but they were just not well thought out. We're all learning a lot of lessons. Like, for example, in fundraising, we're learning that having a crying child, or a very vulnerable looking child, a picture of somebody that is just in dire straits, having that as your fundraising is not necessarily effective. You don't have to pay for somebody of their dignity to raise money or whatever. So there are lots of lessons being learned, that actually is, sort of creating donor fatigue. So the way for organizations to overcome that with donors is to be innovative about their programming, to say, okay, this is what we're doing differently. To be honest, and to say, these are we learned from the last time, and this is what we're going to do differently. and it's also to engage more with the community. Um, a lot of organizations were in the habit of developing a program at their desk at the office. Then you go to the community and you implement the program.
Mm,
We're all learning that doesn't work. You need to make sure
at
there is
all.
ownership. So you need to build the
Yes.
program with the community without necessarily raising expectations.
Yes.
Through the program, get buy-in. That's why it's important for beneficiaries to be represented on your board. They don't, whether it's a board of the directors or just maybe an advisory board for the purposes of that project. Um, all those things help to overcome donor fatigue, but donor fatigue is real.
It's really something because, you know, a lot of organizations will just go to a community and assume they know what to do.
Yeah.
They just assume that they know, what the community needs, and it's sheer arrogance. You get what I'm saying?
It
And like
is.
you
It
said,
is.
donors, wants to see innovation. In fact, there was a donor that was at an event that I was hosting, and he said, if I see one more proposal that says capacity building, I will switch off. So it was one of those things like there needs to be more of an innovative way that you're going to implement your program for
Yes.
us to fund. So this
Yes.
is and one thing that I noticed, Ada, is that these organizations, they have a value proposition. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
you have a value proposition, so you need to come in with something to bring to the table. One thing a donor once said is that, look, we are not doing you a favor giving you money. We are doing our jobs. So it's important that you realize that, and then you bring in your value to the table, and then
Yes.
it's a sustainable, partnership. So which is really
Yes.
something. Now, I just wanted to note to the audience, if you have any questions, please put it in the comment section so that Ada will be happy to answer any of them that you would have within the time frame that we have here. So if you have any questions, I see some engaged people here. I just saw some Mrs. Igbinedion. Thank you so much for coming. Yemisi, I know. Yamina from Lagos, thank you so much for coming. Ebenezer from Abuja, Kingsley Atang, thank you so much for being here. So if you have any questions, please, please, please put it in the comment section, and Ada will be happy to answer those for you. Okay. So I just want to even take it a bit further. Ada, where do you see philanthropy in Africa in the future, based on
Hmm.
that you're saying?
I think it's exciting because years ago, maybe the 90s, even early 2000s, and before that, our
Mm-hmm.
approach to philanthropy was what I call bag of rice approach, where a wealthy a wealthy person will buy gari rice, share with the community, and that's philanthropy. Everybody was a philanthropist because you just share something, and
Mm-hmm.
we've actually woken up.
Yeah.
And I had a client about 3 years ago that reached out to me, and he said, I'm elderly and I want to leave a legacy. And so we got together and we helped to try to structure a foundation for him. And for him, he said, I want to leave a legacy like the Rockefeller Foundation. And I
Mm.
that is where we are going. It's no longer, in a few years, maybe 10, 15 years, we're no longer just going to be talking about getting external donor funding. I think we're going to be much better about our own philanthropists, that we're going to move away. We're going to be, let me not say move away, but I think we're going to be better about how we give. Um,
Mm.
we're going to have more structured foundations. We're going to have. I have a client that we set up. We were able to set up with a financial institution a fund. So they invested seed funding, and they are currently using interest payments run to manage and implement their programs. So I think that philanthropy in Africa is going to get stronger in that we're going to have wealthy Africans be serious about having structured means of giving and supporting NGOs in their country, in their community, in the continent. I think we all know the famous Tony Elumelu Foundation, which is doing great work across the continents. You know, they didn't just set up this program to empower entrepreneurs in Nigeria or in one community in Nigeria. They continents wide, and I think that foundation, along with people like Mr. Strive and Sisiwa, all those people are sort of galvanizing their peers to think more about structured legacies,
I see.
not just what you did, the business you built, but actually living a structured legacy that helps fund organizations. And I think the next step after that is people that are not wealthy realizing that they can also participate in philanthropy. You don't have to be giving out millions to be considered a philanthropist. So whatever you have, wherever you are, I think the next step after that is going to be organizations, financial institutions, creating tools that allow people to participate in philanthropic giving, individuals that are not necessarily high net worth individuals. So that's where I see philanthropy in Africa. I think that as a continent, we are waking up to just be more structured about how we give and where we give. I think the COVID relief was a good example where
It was
we
a
are
wake up
really
call,
good.
really.
It was, it's almost in our DNA to take care of our community members,
Yes.
because the
Yes.
way even individuals responded, I think that the next step is just we're going to see people, organizations creating structures that enable anybody that wants to participate in giving to be able to, regardless of their net worth status.
That is really something. And I think what will also make them comfortable is these organizations are structured. I
Yes,
feel like, based on my conversation with you, I feel like there's becoming a paradigm shift. Based on the beginning of our conversation, you were saying that usually donors would just give to organizations that do small ad hoc style
yes,
work, like, okay, bag of rice, okay, you build an orphanage, dig a well of sorts.
yes.
And now,
You get well.
now it's transitioning into making sure that there is structure, there
Mm-hmm.
is evidence-based programming, and then there is
Mm-hmm.
impact.
Yes,
And then it's transitioning to that. And then you're like,
yes,
okay, donor fatigue. Donors are tired of funding the same things and are not being able to measure impact. So therefore, it's once organizations now become structured, then you now have a case where even locally in Africa, the wealthy are now beginning to structure
yes,
funds.
yes,
Like you mentioned, the Tony Elumelu Foundation, you have the Mo Ibrahim Foundation, you have the Aliko Dangote Foundation. I think Rabiu from Boa, I feel like he just started a foundation. I think he's going to be doing an endowment for $100 million a year for a couple of years to build up. So it's like it it has already started. You know
yes,
what I mean? So it's like, with as organizations begin to structure it themselves, then Africa will be able to sustain itself. This is what, based on the conversation that we're having with regards to philanthropic threats, and it's really something. So so what are your thoughts now with regards to our partnerships with current donors? Where we, as you already know, there are a plethora of different types of donors. So
mm,
how do we how do we regain, like, especially with Nigerian NGOs, how do we regain trust and goodwill with external donors so that there is more trust within the process? Because as you know, there's a lot that has happened. So like, how
Yeah.
do we rebuild that trust?
Um, being more transparent, I think, is the first step.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in terms of how you're running the organization. All of us, we're all human beings. So wherever you are, I think
Mm-hmm.
when you start something, you put your blood, sweat, and your finances into that. It feels like this is my personal thing. I think the
Mm-hmm.
first step for many non-governmental organizations, understanding that if you want outside funding, you
Yes.
have to, the level of transparency you have to be open to, there's a level of accountability you have to embrace. So I think that's the first step. The second step is also about understanding that you also have to have a diversified funding model, because COVID was a perfect example. You
Yes.
you
Yes.
you
Yes.
know,
Yes.
let's say the donor X has said they will give you X amount of money. COVID hits. Those funds were redirected. So does that mean you shut down? Does that mean that that's the end of your project? So I think that right now there has to be a better and a stronger focus on having diversified funding. Some of your funds can come from grants. Some of your funds can come from crowd fundraising. Some of your funds can come from your board. Some of your funds can come from corporate philanthropy. Some of your funds can come from earned revenue within your nonprofit. Your nonprofit can do some things to generate revenue. But the idea is to just have a diversified model so that you are not entirely dependent. And then the third thing, it goes back to when you asked me about trends.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
also about making sure you have clarity about what you're trying to do as an organization, the program you're trying to do. Because if donors wake up and say, we're not funding, like I would say right now, the vast majority of donors in Nigeria are funding things in our conflict impacted areas, a select group of states in the north, a small group of states in the north. That is where a large amount of donor funding is going. So if you're an organization that was counting on donor funding, donors have to react to the needs, and the need is there. The need is not necessarily, or the greater need is in these conflict affected areas, not necessarily where you are located or where your organization is operating from. So you have to have a model that is not based on or entirely reliant on how external donors, on their strategic plans, on their vision. You have to have a sense of what am I trying to accomplish, and
Exactly.
how do I build my network, whether it's with the private sector, the public sector, individuals. How do I do that so that this organization is sustainable? So building trust with donors, to answer your question, to wrap up, building trust with external donors is about being ready to be transparent and accountable about what you're doing and how you're doing it. Being open to that. You can't have the mindset of this is my personal NGO. I don't have to answer to anybody. If you want external funding, bring everything. Just open your books and
Yes.
do your evaluations to show some evidence that you're actually thinking about what you're doing and why you're doing it, instead of doing things to fulfill righteousness. But for me, the big thing is having diversified funding so that you can be sustainable and you're not dependent on circumstances or external factors beyond your control.
If that is really something. And one thing I've noticed that donors do mention is that they ask you, okay, so after we funded this project, how sustainable is it going to be? So it's going to be dependent all those factors that you just mentioned prior, you
Mhm.
know.
Yes.
So so let us know, do you have any final thoughts for us? And just be if there are any questions that are coming, because it looks like different people are coming in different parts of our conversation. So
Mhm.
so if you guys have any questions, put it up. I'll send it to Ada. She'll answer them, and then I'll respond as I get it. So I know that this is a hot topic. So Ada, do you have any final thoughts for us before we round up?
Final thoughts. I would say one, if you're starting an organization, do your research. To think of it like a business. Who else is in that space? What are they doing? Can you build up on that? Can you partner with them? That's one. Two, have structure in mind. If you can, start with partners, start with a board, and make sure your board understands their roles and responsibilities. Your board should they should support your organization, not just in kind, but financially. And it doesn't mean that they have to give millions. It doesn't matter how much they give, they should give something. You should have a board that is bringing, whether it's technical skills that your organization needs, or some other kinds of skills like marketing or legal or finance. Have people on your board that can help open doors with potential donors. So to me, those are very key things. You should also bear in mind that you need to know what the need in your community is. Don't make assumptions. We make a lot of assumptions, especially those of us that are educated elites. We look at things and we say, oh, okay, this is because of poverty. Actually
Mm,
do your research, find out why. What is the reason why this is a challenge in this community, or this is an issue in this community? Do the research and have evidence that underlines what you are proposing. Look for
okay.
best practices. Are there things that have been done around your idea that you can borrow from? You don't have to invent everything from the start. Some other things that are very important, um, disability. We act as if disabled people don't exist. They exist.
Yes, they do.
Factor them into your programs, into your staffing, into your board. Factor gender equity into your board, into your programs. Factor your beneficiaries. Let's remove this top-down approach. So this I am here to save my people. No, really, really open your eyes and look at where you are, where you're operating. Are the people that you want to help, are they represented? Are they at the table as you're designing this program? Really bring everybody to the table. So those are the things that come to mind. And the final thing is, for organizations, when people reach out to me to say, can you help us write a grant, I always send them something that, here's a little one page form to fill out. Are you really grant ready? Do you have all these things?
Mm,
Because you maybe right now you are at the point where you should simply focus on crowd fundraising. Maybe you're at the point right now where you should test some ideas with your money and your board's contributions. Maybe you're not
yes.
yet ready to go out and look for grants. For those that are ready to go out and look for grants, make sure that you're not imposing on a community. Make sure you're building the program, the idea with the community. Make sure that you are applying for grants to organizations that are funding your interest area. If you want a grant for something in gender equity, don't apply for funding to an organization that is strictly funding. Um, uh, I'm trying to think of a good example. That
Elections.
Elections, right? I mean, we can put gender equity into elections,
We can
but
we can fit it in, but
we can fit it in. But look at the examples of what they funded in the past. Look at what they say they are interested in funding. If they're focused on climate change, don't send them a proposal to build a school in your community.
yeah.
Um, so really pay attention. So those are my final thoughts.
Actually, as you were mentioning your final thoughts, some questions were swarming in, so
Okay.
we'll just take a few minutes to answer them. I think
So,
I'm going to just take this one from Josephine Bode. It says, "How do you get donors for our all-female NGO?"
okay. It depends on what your all-female NGO is doing. What is your organization trying to do? What's the program? What are they trying to change? What's the problem they're trying to solve? That's the starting point before we start talking about donors. Secondly, every organization has a natural constituency. So if I'm going to make assumptions, Josephine, that maybe your organization is focused on gender issues or issues that impact women. So those are your natural constituencies. So it's about trying to see, okay, who are the women that we can reach out to, or who are the organizations that are funding things around women's issues, gender equity, that you can start reaching out to. So, but the first question we need to answer is, what does the organization do?
Yeah,
What's the program? What's the need you're solving? What's the solution you're putting forward?
yeah. Thank you so much, Mrs. Josephine Bode, for that question. Um, we are going to go with Emmanuel Oturu. He says, "Please share a few lines on GoFundMe initiatives."
Yes. So I'm trying to remember. I know that there's one for Nigeria.
Is it
I think.
Imela? Is it
eh,
Imela? Is it Imela, or is there another one?
There's another one. There's
Okay.
some crowd fundraising. If I were to do crowd fundraising, I would first look at the Nigerian ones, because GoFundMe has they have some legal barriers. There are things like these are you have to read the fine print to make sure
Mhm,
that you're not going to lose the funding. So if you, for example, if you go use GoFundMe to fundraise and you don't have a registered NGO, it could be considered your personal income and it would be taxed, right?
I
Or you may not
see.
get access to that money. So there's certain things. So I know I've seen a couple, and I had a list somewhere, but I would say I would start with the local, look at what has been tailored for our environment in terms of crowd fundraising, because GoFundMe is under, it's a crowd fundraising initiative. The key with crowdfunding is to be able to tell a story, to be to start with a compelling story. You're not entitled. You're not entitled to people's donations, and compelling story doesn't mean the somebody is sick and dying in the hospital, therefore give. Some people will see that and say, my 10,000 naira is not going to make a difference in this person's life. And I don't believe the healthcare system has the capacity to fix this person's issues. So I will just sit down here and pray for them. So compelling, yes. So compelling is make it clear that this is what the funds will be used for, and this is the impact that the funds will make on this issue. So make sure you spend more time crafting a compelling story, telling what the problem is, saying how somebody's 500 naira, somebody's 5,000 naira can make a difference, and then reaching out to your networks. You can't just craft the story, post it on the website, and just magically expect. Really push it out there, and reach out to a large network so that you see where it goes. And show in your compelling story how you will give accountability. We also, what happened last year during the um, protest against police brutality in Nigeria, one of the things that kept that those protests going was the funds that people were donating, and people were donating because of the transparency and the accountability. It was all crowd fundraise, but the transparency and the accountability that those that were fundraising put forward. So those are the things I believe that help with making sure a crowd fundraising initiative is successful. A compelling story, showing impact, and showing accountability and transparency.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much. I think Mrs. Bode mentioned something about her organization, so we'll just highlight it very quickly,
Sure.
and then maybe. Okay, so she said that we're female lawyers educating women and children, and we're trying to get shelter for women who will need the same.
Yes.
So,
So your
so
natural
what do?
constituency already is lawyers, not just female lawyers, but the first group of donors you have to reach out to are lawyers, because they understand what you're trying to do, the importance of what you're trying to do. So you tell the story, you tell why it's important, and the first group you reach out to is lawyers. Then the second group you reach out to are organizations that are funding issues around gender-based violence, around supporting and sheltering vulnerable children and women. So that's your first starting point. But in your case, if you're just starting off as an organization, I would say point A, start with lawyers, different lawyers association, Female Bar Association, Nigerian Bar Association, FIDA. Start with, FIDA, I don't believe is a grant making organization, but your first natural constituency lawyers, period. Then you can narrow it down to female lawyers and then go from there. But you need to be able to tell a compelling story. You need to be able to show you've done your research. Where are you going to situate the shelter? How are you going to manage the shelter? How are you going to, what are the best practices in shelter? Have you done the research to make sure that when you go to reach out to your donors, you're not just asking them to donate, but you're showing them that you have the capacity to make sure that this is sustainable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Ada. Adaku, you have been great. Thank you so much for
Thank you,
spending
birthday
time with us
woman.
and talking. and, I know, right? And talking to us about philanthropic trends, what's happening right now what's happening right now in Africa, and kind of like the way forward. So, thank you so much for that.
Thank you
And
for having me.
all right, thank you so much. Take
All
care.
right. Take care.
Bye. All right, you heard it. Adaku Uche-Ekpo, she talked about philanthropic trends in Africa. So I look forward to seeing you again next week, Wednesday, for Dev Sector Series. Our next speaker, I'll be sharing it on all my platforms: Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. So those of you who are following me, you would see the next speaker, and I will see you next Wednesday. Take care.
And then the environment was cleaned up.
The first time I was hearing about this stuff, it was totally new to me.
With social impact consulting.